This is The Herd, hour number 3. Wherever you may be, however you may be listening, live in Los Angeles, iHeartRadio, Fox Sports Radio, and FS1. It is great to have you here. 10 minutes. Bucky Brooks, former NFL scout, one of my favorite guests, writing an article right now. Will the Cowboys pay Dak a monstrous contract around the corner, because they will eventually have to, or at least be asked that question. So Bucky Brooks will be joining us here in hour number 3 in about 10 minutes. So the series are all set. Monday, it's the Warriors and the Rockets. The Final Four is set. Sunday, Game 1, Celtics, Cavs. Boston last night took care of the Sixers, so I'm going to start with this. There are 3 places where I like gray hair. I like gray hair with my pilots, I like gray hair with my surgeons, and I like a little gray hair in the NBA playoffs with my roster. And let me explain this. Years ago, my wife and I lived out east. We're going to Nantucket. It's this little island in the summers, really cool, shaped like a boomerang. We're going to go for the first time. You got to fly a little plane over there. It's like a 26-minute flight. And we get on this little tiny plane, which, you know, it's about that big. And here comes the pilot. My wife's a nervous flyer, and the pilot is, I don't know, 11. And my wife freaks out. She's like, he's 11. And I'm like, well, he's got a pilot's license. He's flown before. He's got a number of hours. And she said, he just looks too young. Her anxiety went through the roof. And I said, yeah, it is something, isn't it? Surgery, flying planes, little gray hair matters. Everybody in society loves the millennials, loves young kids. I get it. Be very careful. Sixers Celtics was full of young, talented players. Boy, is Embiid good. Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Terry Rozier, Ben Simmons. Man, good. 6.5 minutes to go. This series was decided by who? Veteran Al Horford. 6.5 to go. Out of a timeout, tie score. Brad Stevens calls the number of Al Horford. Scored, assisted, smart screens, good defense. Game 3 and Game 5. Who made the shots or shot late to win the games? Al Horford. Okay, this is why I like Cleveland to beat Boston in the Eastern Conference Finals. Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, Terry Rozier are very good. I get LeBron, Kyle Korver, Tristan Thompson, Kevin Love, J.R. Smith, George Hill. I get veterans. I know we're trying to push all these young people into big jobs and all these old gray hairs to the sidewalk. But ask yourself, aren't there certain places you just feel better when the age starts with a 3 and not a 2? If I told you, the person running your 401k is 24. Wouldn't you feel a little better if they were 34, and even better if they were 44? I would. This is why LeBron James chose Kevin Love over Andrew Wiggins when he came back to Cleveland. This is why LeBron James chose Bosh and Dwayne Wade and eventually Mike Miller and Shane Battier and Ray Allen in Miami. I like Jason Tatum. He's 20. Can't legally drink in that 4 seasons he stays in. Terry Rozier, 24. Jaylen Brown, 21. Remember last night, who hit the big bucket late and seemingly the only bucket in the last 2 minutes for the Sixers? J.J. Redick, the veteran. Look around the world of basketball today. Who is left? Who is leading their team? Al Horford, LeBron, Love, Chris Paul, Durant, Curry. I know we all love young people. I don't want them flying my planes. If I got a heart transplant, I don't want them looking over me. And I really, really don't want to be led by talented young guys in the NBA playoffs. I'll take Cleveland over Boston in 6. Let me shift to this. Philadelphia lost, but they're the only team that lost that has to feel good about itself this morning. Minnesota, Portland, New Orleans, Utah, Washington, OKC, Indy. Do those teams feel like, if we just get one more wing score, we got a chance to be great for a lot of years? No, they don't. Philadelphia does. But they were tanking last year. 2 years ago, they won 10 games. Last year, they wouldn't play Ben Simmons. They could have. They were tanking so they could get a better draft pick. You don't go from 10 wins to tanking still to Eastern Conference Finals. They didn't lose this series because they weren't athletic enough. They lost this series for the same reason young teams all in their baby steps lose a series. They lost it situationally. They weren't very good with 2.5 minutes to play. But let's examine the guy who's going to lead Philadelphia, Ben Simmons, for the next 12 years. You and I know Embiid's going to miss a lot of time in those 12 years if he lasts that long with injuries. So let's be serious here. It's going to be Ben Simmons. Ben Simmons is not just a rookie. He's a rookie point guard / he's a rookie quarterback. It is much harder to beat Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, and Josh Rosen than a rookie left guard, Mike linebacker, third corner, 2 safety. The responsibility of being a point guard / quarterback is a heavy burden. Let me tell you what Ben Simmons did, this rookie point guard this year. 18-8-6 in this series. 18-8-6, 53% from the floor. And an excellent, excellent defensive player. Let me repeat, he's not just a rookie, he's a rookie point guard. And I know what you want to say is, Colin, plus minus was not good. He was facing the best coach in the NBA. He was facing an excellent defensive team. He's 20. Everybody, let's examine all the rookie point guards in the NBA this year. Not just rookies, rookie point guards. De'Aaron Fox, Sacramento. Boy, you love him, right? Kentucky, got to draft that guy. He shot 41% from the floor. Ben Simmons, 55. What about Lonzo Ball? Even I like Lonzo Ball. Simmons beats him in virtually every category, especially in defense. What about Dennis Smith with Dallas? I saw him play a dozen times, twice live. Oh, yes. His team was 22-47. Simmons beats him in points and rebounds and wins and losses and field goal. He shot under 40%. What about that guy, that French guy for the Knicks? Oh, everybody loves that guy. He's got quite a future. He shot 36%, 3 assists a game. Ben Simmons not only is a better defensive player than all the other rookie point guards, he came in with a greater burden to be great. He came in without a veteran roster of go-to guys. Points, rebounds, assists, defense, vision, court awareness, finishing at the rim, vision. We give all these veteran players, Westbrook and Giannis and John Wall and Anthony Davis, Andrew Wiggins, Damian Lillard. Why do we give them all these years and make excuses? And we're beating up on Ben Simmons, who is essentially asked to be a quarterback as a rookie, got his team to the second round of the playoffs against the best defensive coach in the league, and goes 18-8-6 and shoots 53%. And they only lost situationally, which is completely understandable. This is what rookie point guards do in the playoffs, against the best coach, against an elite defense, in a game that can get you bounced in the playoffs. Ben Simmons, for the next 12 to 15 years, is going to make Philadelphia relevant. Joel Embiid will not last 15 years. Compare this kid to the other rookies. Look at how they struggled to shoot 40% for the floor. Look at how they struggled to get 4 assists. Who is Ben Simmons passing to? An old J.J. Redick? A guy named Covington nobody out of the Philadelphia area code knew? Dario Saric? And Embiid when he could play, though not back-to-back. He's the future. He's legit. And being a rookie point guard is like being a rookie quarterback. It is a heavy burden, and the kid is absolutely fantastic. And with that, we shift to a guy that I rely on often for insight. He's a former player, a former scout, and now a broadcaster and a writer for the NFL Network and a frequent guest on our show. And we have a variety of topics to hit on. Bucky Brooks, NFL Network analyst, DB with the Packers, Jags, Bills, Raiders, Chiefs. Man, you moved around this league, drafted by Buffalo in the second round. By the way, speaking of drafting, let me I want to hit one more topic with on this Baker Mayfield thing. You and I did not believe he was worthy of a number one pick.
Right.
I believe neither one of us thinks he's either a bust. I don't think he's a bust.
No.
I thought Tebow and Manziel would be bust. Jamarcus Russell, I thought, bust. I don't see him as a bust. So we agree on that, right?
Yeah, we agree. He's not. I don't think he's a bust. I think he's in the right situation for him.
Okay, but you heard an interview recently with his college coach, and it made you even sure of your belief that he's not a number one pick. Explain that.
So Lincoln Riley was on Adam Schefter's podcast.
That's the coach of Oklahoma.
Coach of Oklahoma. And he was just talking about the feedback they got after Baker's junior year was that he probably would have been a mid-round pick, 4th or 5th round.
That's what he was told.
That's what he was told, that he would come back. So that kind of goes with what I saw from Baker Mayfield the summer before his senior year.
What did you see?
I gave him like a 3rd-round grade, and in my report I wrote, look, good player, solid, kind of reminds me of a less explosive version of Tyrod Taylor. And so with that, I was fine going into the year thinking that, look, he may ascend, maybe he gets up to 2nd-round status or whatever, because a lot of that, I think people have to understand, round value is really tied to how you think the player's potential is. So when you take someone in the top 10, we're saying it's a transcendent player. He's going to be a multiple-time Pro Bowler, a guy that is a transcendent star in the league.
Right.
1st-round player, you're thinking immediate starter, impact player. 2nd round, solid starter at some point, and it goes on and on down the line.
Right.
So when you give someone a 2nd or 3rd-round grade, you're saying, look, this guy can be a starter in the league, but he may not be a high-end starter, but he can be just a solid starter.
So you had Baker as a 3rd-round starter as a scout. You've done that for multiple teams. And Lincoln Riley was told by scouts he's a 4th-round prospect.
Right. So,
okay.
That's the range coming into the year for sure.
Okay. Now we go to the draft.
Yeah, so when we go to the draft, at the end of the day, I gave him a borderline 1st-round grade. I gave him a top of the 2nd-round grade just because of the height consideration. Just I still come from an old school place where, look, Drew Brees didn't go in the 1st round. Russell Wilson didn't go in the 1st round.
Right.
It's just uncommon for a guy that is undersized to go in the 1st round.
He's also not
unless he has exceptional physical gifts like Michael Vick had, or it's a random special circumstance. And so I was very comfortable. If he got drafted mid to the bottom of the 1st round, that's fine because things happen. People want quarterbacks. But when you go number 1, the number 1 overall pick is supposed to be a franchise savior, a guy that is an impact player, someone that can change the game on his own account just with his presence.
10 Pro Bowls.
Absolutely. Like, that's typically what you're thinking at that spot. That guy has to be like a star. And so I'm just still not convinced that Baker Mayfield's talent suggests that he's going to be a star. Now, I think he's going to play well in Cleveland.
But here's the thing. So he went from your and Lincoln Riley hearing from scouts, a 3rd and 4th round player, to the number 1 pick. Conversely, Darnold, after the Rose Bowl against Penn State, was seen as a 1st round player. So Sam, going into the year, was seen as a 1st round quarterback, and it moved up to a very reasonable spot. Baker in a year went from a 3rd and 4th round prospect to the number 1 pick. That, to me, is called overdrafting.
I mean, I think you can absolutely say, like, it's an overdrafted situation. You typically just don't see guys go from mid-round status to number 1 overall. Sometimes guys go into the 1st round, but number 1 overall, those are guys that you typically can identify years in advance that these guys would be in the mix. Remember, Jadeveon Clowney at South Carolina, we could talk all about his last year, but when he played in the bowl game against Michigan, everyone talked about him being a potential number 1 pick. Didn't have the greatest year, but he still circles back around and ends up at that number 1 spot. Myles Garrett was someone that was talked about prior to the season being a guy that could be the number 1 overall pick based on his talent. Whether he played to that point or not, his final season at Texas A&M, no, but he still goes number 1. There is something that stands out early in a player's career that you're like, you know what? This guy has the kind of transcendent talent that typically puts them in the top 5, maybe even number 1 overall. We never necessarily saw that with Baker Mayfield. It will be interesting to see how that plays out because quarterbacks can absolutely succeed without being number 1 guys. They're surrounding him with a good squad. He has skilled players around him.
I think your Tyrod Taylor is not only coincidental, they play now together. Because I said the other day to a scout that I trust, I said, this morning, Tyrod's better.
Absolutely.
There's not a question, Lee. The scout that I trust said, oh, yeah, Tyrod today is better than Baker Mayfield. The scout also said Darnold's their best quarterback in New York now. He just needs experience. But physically, he's their best player at that position.
Yes.
Easily.
And that's how it should be.
And, and New York knows that.
When that guy shows up, like so, Colin, we just got off of rookie minicamp. Right. So rookie minicamp, when the rookies show up, all the scouts stand on the sideline, and they're waiting to see the new toy. They want to see the new shiny toy.
Right.
Let's see what the number 1 pick looks like because he should look far and above what the rest of the rookies look like. So when Sam Darnold shows up, you see him throw, okay, this and that, check. You heard the conversation about Lamar Jackson coming out of Baltimore. Whether you liked him or not, the conversation, John Harbaugh, he's a little more accurate, a little faster than we thought. A little this. Those are the kind of conversations that you want to have when you leave rookie minicamp. When your guy's a top pick, that's what you want to hear. And the feedback should match up to where the guy was taken.
Okay, you have a source inside the Steeler organization. Big Ben came out this week and complained about them taking Mason Rudolph, a quarterback who they said, hey, he can't help us right now. I would say they don't have a lot of weaknesses, although I do think they could use help at corner and linebacker. So could everybody in the league, not named the Rams. They have good corners. What do you make? What does your source inside the Steelers say about this constant public spanking Big Ben gives his organization?
Well, one, they said everyone around the Steelers, players, staff members, everyone knows how Big Ben is. Big Ben is highly sensitive.
Is he?
Big Ben is a bit of a diva, needs some attention. So whenever he doesn't get the attention that he needs, we hear these things in the media that kind of come out. We've heard him bash coaches. We've heard him contemplate retirement openly and discuss it with reporters. They said the situation that played out with Mason Rudolph, maybe they should have done a better job of just kind of letting them know, hey, here's what's coming down the pipe. We still value you as the franchise quarterback. However, look, you're getting older, injuries, maybe you talk about being in retirement mode. We need to make sure that we have a backup plan just in case so we can continue to develop one of the young guys. Look, this guy isn't going to take your spot. You shouldn't feel threatened. But what we're going to do is get another guy in the pipeline to develop. So when you eventually walk away, the franchise is in good hands. That is the conversation because that would have made him feel like he's inclusive. He's a part of the process. He wasn't blindsided. Now the way you hear Ben's conversation, it was like, oh, my God, they're trying to replace me. And I've always said, look, a lot of insecurities in the National Football League. The quarterback room is full of them. It is rare that you have 2 alphas in the quarterback room because quarterbacks rarely are forced to compete for their spot. They're kind of anointed as the guy, anointed as the leader, and it's uncomfortable. The rest of the team, everyone is always competing. They're always bringing guys in behind you. You always know that you have to work and earn your keep. Quarterbacks typically aren't asked to do that. So that's why you hear some of the whining and crying that comes out because it's not just Big Ben. We've heard, I guess, the rumor mill, they talk about Tom Brady, Jimmy Garoppolo. We saw how Eli Manning lashed out when they talked about just taking him out in the second half. And he whined a little bit, and it ended up getting everyone fired because it didn't go right. So we know that franchise quarterbacks are treated a little differently. You have to treat them with kid gloves because if not, they have a tendency to whine and moan. And we saw Big Ben whine like a baby after not getting his way.
Stephen Jones, son of Jerry, now mostly runs this franchise. You're writing an article right now on having to pay back Dak Prescott. When will this happen, and would you do it?
Oh, they're going to have to pay Dak. They can't pay him until after the 2018 season based on the CBA because he was drafted mid-round. He cannot kind of get a new contract extension after his 3rd year. So the situation as it plays out really plays well for Dak Prescott, particularly if he plays solid or above. He is going to surpass what Jimmy Garoppolo got. Wow. He is going to get big money because look at it this way. Look at it this way. With Jimmy Garoppolo is like 27 and a half.
Right.
Jimmy Garoppolo played 5 games. He played 5 games. When you look at the numbers, His passer rating was mid-90s. He had 7 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. Yeah, they won 5 in a row down the stretch. Great. For Dak Prescott, we've seen a longer body of work. And say what you want to about Dak Prescott. 22-10. Passer rating is at 95.5.
Yes.
His touchdown interception ratio is like 45-17. In fact, I know people have a love affair with Carson Wentz. You could say that he's just as productive as Carson Wentz when you look at it. And so if we're saying that Carson Wentz is the next great quarterback, well, you're going to have to include Dak Prescott because the numbers are exactly the same. And so Stephen Jones, he knows what's coming. He knows he's going to have to break the bank for his quarterback. And like it or not, Dak Prescott is going to be paid, and he might be the next $100 million quarterback that we talk about.
And I have no problem with that. I've said this before. We all hyperventilate about stuff. Matt Ryan, with above-average weapons most of his career, is about a 90 quarterback rating guy. That's what he is. I'd still pay for him. I think Dak, and this never happens, is the rare cowboy quarterback that's undervalued. Generally, we overvalue a cowboy quarterback. I think Dak, I've said 22 wins, dealing with major injuries and nothing but noise last year. I think his strength really, frankly, is above the shoulders. I think he's a grown-up.
Yeah, he is a grown-up. And I think people, because I've been pegged as a Dak apologist, you're making excuses for him because 82 Witten and Dez Bryant were declining players. Zeke Elliott didn't play for 6 games. Right. And then the offensive line was a bit of a mess because Tyron Smith wasn't healthy. And, look, he didn't play great, but the numbers aren't as bad as people make it. He didn't play at the level that he performed at his rookie level. But remember, that was an all-time high for rookies, what he did. 11 games with a passer rating over 100. He was absolutely phenomenal. It was a bit of a correction the second year. I believe now he's coming to a situation where they're building the team around him. Because remember, he came in as the 4th pick, right, 4th-round pick. It was still Tony Romo's team. They didn't build the team with Dak Prescott in mind. This is the first year where they're going to build the team around Dak Prescott. So people are worried about the wide receiver core. Understand this. He played in the spread system at Mississippi State. He wants to throw the ball inside the numbers. They want quick guys, Cole Beasley, Tavon Austin as a change of pace back. Some of the young guys that they got, Michael Gallup in the draft, those guys will win their one-on-ones, but the team is going to be built with Dak throwing play-action passes after they feed Ezekiel Elliott. It's a team that needs to play a certain way to win. I think you'll see Dallas get back to that grinded-out formula that made them successful.
15 seconds. Look to your left. These are the win totals of the sports books in Las Vegas. Find me a team, when you look at the projected win totals on average, 8.6 wins, is there something that jumps out to you? I look at Dallas and I think, considering their components, 8.6 is pretty low. Andrew Luck at 6.3, if he's healthy, seems low. Anything else that jumps out to you?
San Francisco 49ers, the number jumps out because it tells me that everyone is all in on Jimmy Garoppolo. Everybody is all in. He's magical. He's Joe Montana-esque. All of the stuff that people are saying. At some point, he's going to have to come back to earth. He was great in terms of getting them to win, but now we've had a full offseason to look at what Jimmy Garoppolo is in Kyle Shanahan's offense. Have they upgraded the wide receivers enough? I don't know, because they're still not a true number one.
Bucky, they're still rebuilding their offensive line.
Right.
You don't win 10 games with a bad line.
So he is hot. He was great at the end of the season, and he deserves to be paid. But now that you've paid him at $28 million, he is expected to be a superstar. That is a lot of pressure and a lot of expectations for a guy that is still jumping into a rebuild situation. I don't know how this plays out, because I think LA's better. Arizona's going to be better. It's going to be a tougher division. We'll see how Jimmy Garoppolo handles as defensive coordinators adjust to him.
And the NFC's better than the AFC. Bucky Brooks, great seeing you. Okay. This is The Herd.
What does